begins with Arthur Fleck standing on the precipice of visibility and rejection, a man whose very existence feels like a question mark in a world that refuses to acknowledge him. As we dive into Joaquin Phoenix's haunting portrayal, we find ourselves peering into the depths of a heart-centered longing for significance, a longing that defines Arthur's every action and emotion. At his core, Arthur is driven by the Enneagram Type 4's deep-seated need to matter to someone, to be seen, to be more than just a fleeting shadow in the margins of society. Yet the world around him, Gotham, treats his vulnerability as spectacle rather than a cry for connection. Arthur's survival rule is a poignant yet perilous one. If I cannot be loved as myself, I will become impossible to ignore. It's an unyielding quest for visibility, born out of a life marred by rejection and dismissal. The pain of feeling disposable gnaws at him, feeding the need to construct a persona that commands attention. This is the heart of Arthur's struggle, an internal battle between the desire to be known and the fear of being forgotten. It's a conflict that echoes deeply within anyone who has ever felt the sting of invisibility. Within the ecosystem of his formative years, Arthur's relationship with his mother looms large. Their dynamic is a microcosm of inherited stories and burdens. She sees him not as Arthur, but as a living testament to her dreams deferred. Her delusions, which he inherits in lieu of nurturing, set the stage for a fantasy world where public validation becomes the ultimate balm for his wounds. Arthur is the Enneagram 4 with a wing to the withdrawn and anxious Type 5, retreating into himself, crafting narratives where he is finally seen and acknowledged, if only in his imagination. The figure of Murray Franklin is pivotal in this fantasy. To Arthur, Murray represents the paternal recognition and public validation that he so desperately craves. On the surface, Murray is the mentor archetype, a symbol of success and acceptance. But beneath, he is also the shapeshifter, revealing how illusions of validation can morph into brutal reminders of one's own inadequacies. When Arthur's fantasy of acceptance crumbles on live television, it's a catalytic moment. The humiliation becomes a crucible that forges his transformation, pushing him further into the persona he'd been sculpting, one that demands notice, even if through chaos and fear. Arthur's path is a chronology of turning points, each linked back to his core motive. From the moment he is attacked by the youths in an alleyway to the subsequent media frenzy that casts him into an unwanted spotlight, each event chips away at his fragile sense of self. His laughter, a painful condition, is misread by the world, making him an unwilling performer in a city that thrives on spectacles. This laughter becomes a mask, a shield against the rejection that defines his everyday existence. It is both his burden and his gift, a reminder of the chasm between how he is perceived and who he truly is. As Arthur Fleck becomes the Joker, we witness the shadow versus growth scenario play out in stark relief. The persona overtakes the man, initially as a defense mechanism, but eventually as an identity in itself. In the depths of his shadow, Arthur finds a twisted form of empowerment. His Type 4 longing for uniqueness is satisfied, albeit through destructive channels that reflect the chaos within Gotham itself. This transformation questions the nature of identity. How much of who we become is shaped by the need to be seen, to be acknowledged, especially when ordinary belonging feels out of reach? The tension between being visible and being known is a thread that runs through Arthur's narrative. It's a theme that resonates with audiences because it mirrors the universal human experience. How often do we craft personas to fit into roles, to gain acceptance, even as we yearn for someone to see beyond the performance? Arthur's journey is a cautionary tale of what happens when the balance tips too far into the realm of persona over authenticity. It's a reminder of the fragile line between the self we present to the world and the self that whispers its truths in the quiet moments. As we peel back the layers of Arthur Fleck, we see not just a man transformed into the Joker, but a reflection of the societal ecosystem that shaped him. Gotham's indifference is both the canvas and the catalyst for his metamorphosis. The city itself plays a role, almost like an unyielding character in its own right, treating vulnerability as a spectacle and, ironically, creating the very monster it fears. Arthur's story is a complex interplay of external rejection and internal longing, a dance between the light of hope and the shadows of despair. It poses a question to each of us. In a world that rewards visibility over authenticity, how do we remain true to ourselves without disappearing into the personas we create? Arthur's descent into the shadow manifests most vividly in the climactic scene where he embraces the Joker identity on the talk show. This moment is not just an external performance, it is the culmination of his internal struggle, a grotesque symphony of all his fragmented selves, orchestrating a singular act of defiance against a world that has consistently invalidated him. The Joker persona offers Arthur a platform to transcend the anonymity that has plagued him, but at the same time, it is a surrender to the chaos that lurked within all along. The irony lies in how this act of rebellion provides him with a sense of belonging, albeit within the distorted community of chaos and pandemonium he inadvertently inspires. Here, Arthur's Enneagram Type 4 dynamics are at their most potent. His desire for authenticity compels him to discard the masks that had previously concealed his suffering, allowing his shadow self to emerge unfiltered. In this state, he embodies the archetype of the shapeshifter, simultaneously subverting expectations and highlighting the fluidity of his identity. The metamorphosis is complete when he no longer differentiates between Arthur and the Joker. They become indistinguishable as he steps fully into the role society has unwittingly crafted for him. This transformation begs the question of whether such an identity was latent within Arthur all along, simply awaiting the right conditions to manifest. The ecosystem of Gotham amplifies this transformation. The city's neglect and decay mirror Arthur's internal disarray, reinforcing the narrative that an individual's environment can be both a crucible and a catalyst for change. The social unrest, the economic disparity, and the pervasive sense of hopelessness are more than mere backdrops. They are integral components of Arthur's psychological landscape. In these conditions, his personal chaos finds resonance, turning personal tragedy into collective hysteria. Gotham becomes an archetype of the desolate city, a space where dreams go to die and shadows cast long, unyielding shapes. Within this framework, we see the interplay between Arthur's shadow and the archetypal trickster. The trickster challenges norms, subverts order, and thrives in upheaval, qualities that Arthur, as the Joker, embodies. However, unlike the trickster, who often seeks to illuminate truth through disorder, Arthur's descent is more nihilistic. It underscores the danger of losing oneself entirely to the shadow without integrating its lessons. The Joker's chaos does not seek enlightenment, but rather reflects an internal world consumed by despair. Yet beneath the chaos there's a flicker of universal truth. Arthur's longing for recognition, his desperate plea for connection, echoes our intrinsic human desires. The tension between visibility and authenticity, performance and reality, is a mirror held up to our own lives. We grapple with these dynamics daily, though perhaps less dramatically. The cautionary tale of Arthur Fleck compels us to examine our own shadows and personas, urging us to seek integration rather than domination by one aspect of our psyche. As the Joker dances down the steps, defying gravity and convention, it is both an assertion of his newfound identity and a poignant commentary on the freedom found in madness. The dance serves as a metaphor for the balance, or lack thereof, between sanity and insanity, between the shadow and the self. It is a declaration that, in a world that thrives on appearances, the most profound act of rebellion can be the unapologetic embrace of one's truth. however dark it may be. In the final analysis, Arthur's story is not just about a man lost to madness, but a reflection of the systemic failures and collective shadows within society. It challenges us to consider the role we play in perpetuating the masks others wear and the shadows they hide. In understanding Arthur Fleck, we are prompted to explore our depths, confront our shadows, and strive towards a more authentic existence within the ever-present dance of life.